Blowing out Big Ten opponents is something Ohio State has done consistently in 2022, and it happened over the weekend as the Iowa Hawkeyes came to Columbus and got beat down by 44 points. The Buckeyes won 54-10, and we'll discuss what happened over the weekend right here today on Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes for the Locked on Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Monday, October 24th in the year 2022. And this episode of Locked on Buckeyes is brought to you by Sling TV. Don't miss this week's matchup between the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Penn State Nittany Lions right here on Sling. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. I would also like to thank you for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. On today's episode, we will discuss what was going on with what happened with CJ Stroud over the weekend, and we'll also discuss on an X factor that nobody thought would need to be an X factor against Iowa. But before we get to any of that, this Ohio State team, the story of the year, one of the bigger stories of the year, is the defense. We talked about in the offseason, Jim Knowles, Perry Eliano, Tim Walton, the new defensive coaches, new D coordinator, head coach of the defense, all the terms, the terminology you want to use to describe the things going on the defensive side of the ball. But I don't think anybody expected the Ohio State defense to do what it's doing in 2022. By the numbers over the weekend, they just give you a small picture about how good this defense was against Iowa. Iowa had a total 158 yards of total offense, 81 in the air passing, 77 on the ground. Now, if you want to do the sack-adjusted numbers and not have the sack numbers deflate the rushing numbers from Iowa, Iowa had 102 rushing yards in the entire game. It's not good. That's not good at all. The 77 total yards rushing that they had, that's the official number. That's 2.2 yards a pop. That's good for Ohio State. That's elite stuff right there. If you want to look at some things, the numbers by the entire season, Ohio State's defense has only allowed one team to pass for over 200 passing yards in the game. That was Arkansas State. Ohio State has held two opponents to under 100 yards passing in an entire game. That was Rutgers and Iowa this past weekend. What did they do? Those two teams, what did they have that was similar? They both used multiple quarterbacks. Spencer Petras got benched in the second half. You bring in Alex Padilla, nothing changes. Padilla did not come in a moment when a backup would come in a blowout for either the winning or losing team. He came in because the starter was not getting the job done. Ohio State, at the same time, has only allowed three teams to rush for over 100 rushing yards this past weekend. Iowa Hawkeyes only rushed for 77. Sorry, Siri, I'm in the middle of a good show right here on Locked on Buckeyes. Those are just the numbers over the entire season. If you look at some defensive numbers and talk about who really stood out in this game, Tommy Eichenberg, man. Talked about him in the postcast. If you didn't check that out, go check it out. A lot of great instant reaction stuff from the game. But Tommy Eichenberg continues to be a player that some are going to say deserves to be an All-American this season. He's been phenomenal. Roaming the field, had an interception. He's not just a phone booth type of linebacker. A guy who's tackle to tackle, inside of the box, give me 5 yards depth off the line of scrimmage. He can roam and produce and really bring the wood, lay down the lumber. That's not Tommy Eichenberg. He can get the job done from sideline to sideline. He's getting rangier, and he's really good at pre-snap, deciphering as soon as the ball is snapped, deciphering what's going on, knowing where the linemen are going, knowing what's going to happen, and then going right to where the play is going to be. Patient, but quick at the same time. Zach Harrison, my goodness, man. This is a player that many people coming out of high school, they said he's going to be the next guy at Ohio State. the next big thing. You already had the Bosa's. You had Chase Young. People thought that Zach Harrison was going to be the next big thing. Not the next big thing is what he has been, but he might be the most improved or most important player, one of the most important players on the Ohio State defense this year. Yeah, the numbers might not be as eye-popping from the Iowa game as you might think, but Tommy Eichenberg's interception that he had in this game, that was caused via a pass rush from Zach Harrison, who's in the quarterback's face. Zach Harrison goes in. He tipped a pass on third down during this game as well, which caused Iowa to punt once again. And go back to the play where Eichenberg got the interception, the pass rush. He was consistently in the quarterback's face. A guy who has been an outside D end on both sides. He stood up a little bit in this season. He's also been someone you can slide down to D tackle, the 3 technique. And in this game against Iowa, we know they're going to be physical. You know they're going to bring in 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends. What else did Ohio State do to combat that? Ohio State occasionally ran a 4-3. Who was that third linebacker? Cody Simon. Cody Simon in this game, one of the top tacklers in this game for Ohio State. He had the third most tackles in this game. He had 6 tackles. He also had a sack. Cody Simon did 2 tackles for loss. A guy who some thought might be a starter in 2022 is not a starter in 2022, but he is coming in and getting the job done immediately. Similar to Lathan Ransom, who actually in this game, I rave about Lathan Ransom because he knows going into the game what the game plan is. Is he going to start? Is he going to be a backup? What's he going to do? He's just done his job. Am I just doing his job and doing things in practice and off the field and in the film sessions to prepare for the games? Lathan Ransom led Ohio State in tackles in this game. 8 tackles. He also forced a fumble as well. Remember, he broke his leg in the Rose Bowl. Though these are things, storylines, these are things that pop into my mind when I see these players on the field. They're doing a great job. JT Blowout, he got in on the action as well, got a half a sack with Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Talked about him. I think he's going to be a breakout star, an impact player for Ohio State during the second half of the season. Getting in on a sack with Javonte Jean-Baptiste is a great way to start that trend. Ohio State won 54-10. If you want to tell me what one of the biggest stories is, or the biggest story of the year for Ohio State, it's that defense, man. People always say offense wins games, defense wins championships. And Ohio State, if they keep playing like this, they're going to have a defense that can lead them to the national championship game this year, because I believe their defense being elite cannot just lead them to the national championship game, but can help them win a natty in 2022. That's how elite they have been so far in 2022, and that's how elite I believe they will continue to be this season for your Ohio State Buckeyes. They have been elite. I would not say CJ Stroud played elite over the weekend. What was going on with CJ Stroud? We'll discuss that next right here on Locked on Buckeyes. This week's thrilling moment in college football is brought to you by Nissan. The thrilling designs behind the new lineup from Nissan are intended to empower drivers in vehicles as capable as the driver themselves. When I think of unbelievable abilities on the field for this week's thrilling moment, it has to be the play that Tommy Eichenberg got the interception. I talked about it just a few minutes ago, but that play was so important because they got to see the importance of Tommy Eichenberg and how he has been a big piece of the pie and how he continues to get better and how he can quickly see where the ball's going and get there quickly. And it wasn't just Tommy Eichenberg doing his job, but Zach Harrison, his consistent pass rush, consistent pressure was what helped Eichenberg get that sack. This segment has been inspired by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you in the all-new Frontier, Armada, or Pathfinder today. Available now at nissanusa.com. Thanks for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked on Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your fine podcast. CJ Stroud. He's somebody I have been watching for the past couple years. I've actually also been fortunate enough to be the host of this year's podcast for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I've been able to have put a little bit more emphasis than I did previously on watching, dissecting, analyzing what happens on the field. And I normally try to bring the numbers in and just to let you know what's going to happen, what happened. Let the numbers kind of help you get a quick snapshot about what happened in the game. Well, the numbers for Stroud really don't tell you about what exactly was going on. 20 for 30, 286 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, completion percentage of 67%, a passer rating of 184.1. The passer rating is way better than most quarterbacks in college football. So I'm not going to say that we're going to read into that. The 20 for 30 is a little bit weird, a little bit odd, because when you look into what was going on the field, you get to see exactly that. Now, Stroud got numerous guys involved in the passing game. Harrison Jr., Ibuka, Fleming, Stover, and Jigba. Jackson Smith-Njigba did return for this game, but he left. Ryan Day said he left because he was on a pitch count, but everybody's eyeballs saw exactly what was going on with Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jigba was a player that when he was on the field, there was a pass interference that wasn't called when he was on the game, I believe was in the first half. And on that play, Jigba looked like he was not healthy. You can rant and rave about the INT, the non-called PI that was there, but it wasn't an interception, but the non-called pass interference. But Jigba did not look like he was himself on that play. Didn't even really try to fight for the ball, even if he was going to be turning back around. He didn't look like himself at the end in the end zone. Then eventually he got hurt, went off the field, and Day said that he was on a pitch count. I think there's more to the story. That's all I'm going to say about that. But Stroud looked like there's something going on in his head in the game that was an outside influence going into the game. Maybe he was not able to decipher what Iowa was doing, and the passes that he wanted to throw were why he was not getting the ball off quickly and taking time and running around and things of that nature, because Iowa is one of the most fundamentally sound, disciplined defenses every single year any team will ever play. Ohio State's defense is good. Georgia's defense is good. There are other good and elite defenses in college football, but Iowa's defense, we saw the numbers, we saw the game. Part of the reason that Ohio State's offense didn't really flow or do anything early in the game was because of Iowa's defense being so good. But I don't believe that's a big reason why Stroud was doing Stroud things or playing that way. I think there's something wrong. And I remember last year in the press conference, and I think this goes back to see how things are going in the game. I remember last year in the press conference, CJ Stroud made a comment and basically said, hey, I'm a quarterback. My job is to throw the ball, not run the ball. And it wasn't just the response to a question or a comment. I think there was more to it. Part of me believes that he had heard or he had read some things that were said about him and his playing style and said, hey, man, run the ball. Do this. Hey, man, run the ball here. It's great for you. And there were times in this game where I am looking at Stroud, 3rd and 5 of all things. 3rd and 5, do or die, get it, first down, move the chains, keep the ball. If not, Jesse Merkel's coming on the field and punting the ball. But what does Stroud do in this moment? Stroud, 3rd and 5, and they showed the behind the offensive line, the behind end zone view, zoomed it in. You could see Stroud, pocket was there, moved up in the pocket. Instead of running and getting the first down like I believe he can, he stayed in the pocket, didn't go past the line of scrimmage, scrambled around, and got no gain on the play. Might have been a sack, but it was not a gain. Punt the ball, Merkel comes in. And sometimes it just seems like Stroud is just in his head trying to make the Heisman-esque or have the Heisman moment in these games. And even as off as Stroud looked and as off as weird as this game was, Ohio State scored 54 points. Early in the game, Ohio State's their offense was not able to move the ball consistently. They got a good field position from the defense just doing their job. The defense had 6 takeaways in this game. The defense had 5 sacks in this game. So you see the Ohio State's defense is doing some elite things, consistently helping the offense have good field position, and Stroud and the Ohio State offense were not capitalizing. I am starting to think there's something that's not consistently right with Stroud. It gets right. Because Stroud later in the game, once Iowa's defense was not pressing up so much and was more off of the receivers, Ohio State was able to move the ball. Like, it was not something that they were just doing. That changed. Yeah, Iowa's defense may have gotten tired. They were on the field doing their thing. I understand all of those things, but something with Stroud isn't right. It's just odd, man. It just looks like, and it appears like sometimes he gets in his head. Sometimes with this miscommunication, it might just impact his brain. And I go back to Justin Fields. I'm not going to compare them as overall quarterbacks because I think there's positive. You could take positives from Stroud, positives from Field, put those together and improve both quarterbacks while they're playing the football. But we saw Justin Fields in moments, not just in the Clemson game, have a fight, have a grit, have the ability to go within himself, deep down within himself, to come out and be a player that could do all the things, that could come out and do everything, that could will his team and fight and had an extra fire in him. And you would think when your offense is struggling, when your offense is doing certain things, you would think that your quarterback would do those things. You would think that your quarterback would be able to help the team in a big way by just saying, hey, get on my back, follow me, and have that look in his eye. I don't see it, man. I don't care what the numbers say. Stroud's game was not complete. It was off a lot. He was part of the reason Ohio State's offense struggled to move the ball and to score the ball once they got into the red zone early in the game. He was a big reason for that. I don't know what the issue is. I truly don't know. Credit to Kirk Ferentz. He does a phenomenal job of coaching up that defense, having coaches that can help the players be disciplined and know their philosophy, know what they need to do, know the scheme. That's the word that's been thrown around a lot lately, more than it has been over the past 5 years around Ohio State. The scheme. Well, Iowa's players know the scheme very well, and they were up to the task and prepared for what CJ Stroud was going to do on the field. Credit Stroud, though. I say all that to say this. Credit Stroud for being able to, later in the game, figure things out consistently get the ball out. Julian Fleming, Marvin Harrison Jr., even though Marvin Harrison Jr. was guarded very, very well and defended very, very well, he was making some good catches and making some catches that if you're an NFL scout, you're drooling, saying, ooh, I can use that. Ooh, this team can use that guy. Or a team that I like, a team that I root for every single Sunday, the Indianapolis Colts, they can use that guy quick, fast, and in a hurry. And imagine, this would make me so happy. Marvin Harrison was a Hall of Famer for the Colts. What if his son comes out there and starts balling like his daddy was? Well, the Indianapolis Colts, y'all might get your boy to come on this podcast in a few years and act the fool saying, hey, Marvin Harrison Jr. is doing big things just like his daddy did in Indianapolis, Indiana. I know many of you that are Cleveland Browns fans, you would love him in Cleveland. Why? Because you want him on your team because he is just that good. Stroud was not all that over the weekend. He can get better. Later in the game, he was able to connect with his receivers in a way that he was not able to connect with them earlier in the game. I think there's a piece of something going on in his head. He might be listening to the naysayers. He may have watched Hendon Hooker over the weekend during the bye week and said, oh, I got to have a Heisman moment. I got to play big against the Iowa defense, one of the better ones in the country. Get out of your head, bro, and just play. Oh, yeah, run the ball. Run the ball. You're a quarterback. It's not illegal for you to run the ball if the ball's in your hand. You know what is also not illegal for somebody that you don't think is going to step up in a big moment that happened over the weekend? Who was it? What Buckeyes stood up? We'll discuss this special player next right here on Locked on Buckeyes. I have a buddy. His name is Chris. And Chris suffered from excessive underarm sweat for 10 years. He was so worried about sweating through his dress shirts that he started tucking maxi pads in his shirt to soak up sweat until he found SweatBlock. SweatBlock changed the game for him. SweatBlock was created by a doctor to help his own excessive sweating. It is doctor created and doctor recommended for you and for me and for everyone that has trouble with excessive sweat. SweatBlock is the answer for you. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try SweatBlock. Save 20% with promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON at SweatBlock.com. Once again, go to SweatBlock.com. And at checkout, use our friendly promo code Locked On to save 20% at SweatBlock.com. Also available on Amazon. So I am a person that every time I watch a football game, I'm looking to see what else is going on in the game. Who is a difference maker? Who is a special player? Who is somebody that when it comes to special moments in games, that you look out there and say, that person did something big, and that person did something big. 3rd and 5, who makes a big play? 4th and 2, who is a person on the offensive line that gets that extra push? Who is that guy? Well, this time, it was not the Ohio State offense or the Ohio State defense, honestly. Noah Ruggles, a transfer kicker from North Carolina. A guy that when he came in, everyone's wondering, like, what's Ruggles going to do? Who is this guy? Is he special? Was he consistent at his former school? Trying to analyze the kicking game, and just to be honest with you, I can't analyze a kicker outside of the numbers, and most people out there can't analyze a kicker outside of the numbers either. But for sometimes it's easy to do that because, well, it's a kicker. What's your job? Kick the ball through the upright. Your kicking percentage, your length, how far back you can kick the ball, those types of things matter. So the numbers for me tell me a little bit something. I'm going to go to the stats here really quickly. In a moment in the game, when Ohio State could not move the ball, they were struggling to move the ball against this physical, fierce Iowa defense, fundamentally sound Iowa defense. And Ohio State was getting the ball really good field position. I mentioned it earlier. Ohio State defense allowed the Buckeyes offense to get the ball in plus territory sometimes. What happened? Field goal. There were 3 field goals in the first half. A 46-yard field goal, a 41-yard field goal, a 35-yard field goal. Oh, towards the latter part, under 4 minutes to go in the second quarter, Noah Ruggles, not Jesse Burko. Noah Ruggles kicked a 26-yard field goal in this game, 4 for 4. Coming into the game, Noah Ruggles was 2 for 3 in the entire year. In the first 6 games, only had 3 field goals. He had 3 field goals that he made in the first quarter. Had another one and under the 4-minute mark in the second quarter. Nobody, and I mean nobody, probably expected for Noah Ruggles to come into the game and to do the things that he did during this game. But you know what? There will be moments down the road. May it be the game at the end of this week against Penn State when you need Noah Ruggles to come into the game. You need a kicker. We know what Jesse Merkel can do. Coffin corner, pin you inside the 5. I mean, Jesse Merkel is that dude. We saw him against Rutgers. Read, react, run for a first down, 22-yard gain, had some wheels to him, impressed me with the wheels that Aussie did. All of a sudden, he got popped. We saw Ryan Day and Greg Schiano have a finger-pointing fest, have a F-bomb fest. We saw those things. We saw Jesse Merkel light a spark and a lot of fire and really make sure that Ryan Day backed up his players. We saw that, but also, you know what we also saw over the weekend? We saw the kicker, Noah Ruggles, come in and put points on the board, more points via field goals than he had the entire season. There will be a game. Maybe against Penn State. Maybe against a team up north. Assuming Ohio State gets to the Big Ten championship game. Maybe there. Maybe in the playoff. You don't know. But there might be a time Noah Ruggles needs to come in and win the game for you. And you know what? We saw it in the Rose Bowl. We know what he did last year. He has been someone that the Buckeyes relied on against Iowa early to put points on the board. I think you can trust him down the road to do the same thing. The voice is a little bit different for the emphasis. I believe it did the trick. Hey, guys, out of here on a Monday. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can also send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your fine podcast.